Today I'm very excited because I have my very first interview for my podcast. I am interviewing my brother who has written a book, and I think it's amazing. He is truly one of the most interesting people I know. He has written and starred in and helped produce television commercials, hiking, kayaking, photography. He decided he wanted to learn to paint one day, went out and bought paints, and he's like Rembrandt. Right? And you sold some.
Yeah,
too,
I sold some art.
And he's tried most everything I've ever thought would be fun to do or have done, also myself, and including writing this book, Becoming Interesting. So today, everybody, I'm happy to introduce my brother, Jeremy Miller, the author of Becoming Interesting. Welcome.
Thank you. What a flattering intro. I really appreciate that. I am really excited to be here. I've listened to every episode so far. I've really enjoyed it. Some solid insights. For those who have not listened to the rest of the podcast, just as a shout out to him right there, totally worth your time. I've been having a lot of fun going through this podcast as a listener, and I'm really excited to be here as a participant.
Great. Well, thank you. And so, this book you've written, Becoming Interesting, honestly, I've read and listened to various books, both the classics like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich, all of these classics and a few others. And honestly, your book is the most actionable that I've read of any of these, and that, I think that's saying something.
Thank you. That was a big goal of mine with this, is that I would go in, talk about a concept, and I really don't spend a ton of time on any one topic. I feel like there's some books that are like have this really powerful message, and
deep into
they go into all the scientific studies and all these dozens and dozens of experience of the same idea, which is awesome. And that level of depth into an idea, I think, is super impactful. But I wanted to be able to talk about lots of things, hit there, and then say, now go and do something with this idea, because there's a lot of, at least for me, this idea that, you learn, you think about this idea, and you internalize it, but that's it. And I am a big believer about going in there and trying that new thing, or trying to do that thing that's going to stretch you. And so I have these challenges at the end of each of the sections where I then say, try this, do this thing, and then write about it, explore that in your thoughts, and try to internalize that after you've not only read about an idea, but also have applied it.
That's one of the biggest reasons I really thought that this interview would fit so well into my show, because almost every single episode I'm saying, pull out your journal, write down some ideas. If I've inspired you for something with this, or you have some thoughts, or you've had experiences before, write it down.
Yeah.
Analyze it, take some time with your thoughts and dig into it. And the prompts you have at the end of each chapter and section of, now write about this. Sometimes you even have a few prompts. Here's some things to start with.
A hypothetical list of things that they could potentially try and then do, or things to get started on those ideas. Definitely.
And as I tell my listeners all the time, that's so impactful and so helpful, just to take a few minutes and write down, dang, today was crap. Why was it a crappy day? Write it down for a second. If you realize, what, this coworker, he totally doesn't respect me at all. Okay, getting clarity on that can help you then move past it. You can change something once you understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So.
I think out of all the different developmental books that I have read, and I mean, I've read from the levels of like psychology and mental health through professionalism and having good work ethics to selling houses and having millions of dollars and all those things. And I've read the breadth of those type of books, and all of them talk about trying to internalize the ideas by writing things down. I think it's pivotal.
It really is. It helps you organize and clarify your thoughts. So, it's a wonderful aspect of the book. Speaking of, of the book itself, I would really like to hear in your words. You say it at the beginning of the book, but I'd love to hear your words as why did you write this book?
Yeah.
What inspired it?
Oh man. There's so many thoughts, and there's a lot of things that I definitely went into the book, and other types of things that goes kind of beyond. But, like, for me, like, one of the big things is, like, at the very beginning, I talk about with Socrates having an examined life, and there's this quote in there that he talks about that the unexamined life isn't worth living, and this idea that if we're not like thinking about ourselves, intentionally acting and intentionally doing things because we understand who we are, that then we're not going to be able to reach the potentials that we have innately inside of us. And for me, I felt like this was the book that I needed to read, and so I wrote the book that I needed. And like in the time that I was writing this book, I was working in a film studio. Amazing, awesome experience. I've had like so many different jobs in my life,
right.
And like that's been a really cool and amazing like opportunities in order to be able to explore myself and discover, because I think that's something that not everybody gets an opportunity to do.
True.
Anyways, that was a really, really cool opportunity, but I found that like I had a lot of time to myself because I'd work really hard for a month on these huge projects, and then I would be kind of off for a week or 2 weeks or a month, and then I would be going really hard for a week, and then I'd be back off for a week, and then on for a couple of days, off for a day, and I had this time where I was like, what am I doing with my off time? And I found myself seeing, and I kind of talk about at the beginning of the book, this trap that we can kind of see us going home after work, turning on the TV shows, sitting back, relaxing, and just kind of getting into this rotation of not really doing anything meaningful. And I saw that like, oh, this isn't, I mean, this is, obviously we all have an aspect of us which likes to chillax, likes to recoup. That's a definitely important,
it's needed.
Totally thing. Yeah. And for me, I was like, why is this taking dominance? And it's because I wasn't conscious about what I was doing. And I sat down and I started working on this book in that extra time that I had. And that was tremendously eye-opening because I was able to examine myself. I was able to explore some of the ideas that I felt were really, really important. And hopefully be able to share some of those type of insights with people, because my situation is not uncommon. Everybody has those things where they go into either a slump or they slow down, and they like, sometimes you need it. That's totally fair. But if that becomes your default, then your life suddenly becomes bland, becomes boring, and you become bland and you become boring. And in order to be able to reinvigorate yourself, continually grow and be the best versions of yourself, striving for becoming interesting, specifically for yourself, is such a like just an awesome touchstone that if I'm doing this, I'm growing and I'm progressing.
Yeah, I've seen that myself. My wife and I used to sit down every evening, grab a bowl of ice cream, watch 2 or 3 or 4 TV shows, and like, okay, fine, we'll go to bed. And after several months of that, we enjoyed that time. It was it was fun, you know, relaxing time together. But when we could, later after we decided that's maybe not the best thing, my wife has published art and clothing patterns in a magazine. She's sold some art pieces. I developed the podcast. I learned to program and code and just lots of different things because we were using that time for other things, and we'd still have movie nights and other things.
Yeah.
But our focus kind of shifted to
where those things aren't your
learning
default.
and doing and developing different talents and hobbies and activities and things we enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So
I've
seen that. Yeah.
I think that that's awesome, and I think one of the things that we can do in order to be able to be trying to say is, what are the things that I would rather be doing? Making a list, and like for me, like I one time made a list of things that I was like, what are the different hobbies that I want to try to do? Rock climbing, fencing, kayaking, different things like that, and I was like, what is the most attainable things on this list?
Right. What can I
do?
start really easy?
Yeah. And what are the things I need to work towards?
Yeah.
And went down the list pretty much and started doing the different things. And like one of the things that I did while I was like writing the book, I don't know if I actually mentioned this in the book at all, is I started cycling through canyons, and they weren't like necessarily mountain bike riding, but it was
more cyclist trails.
Yeah, cyclist trails, exactly. And I started to get into that because that was one that I was like able to do. I had a bike, and I would bike, and then I'd write, and then I would do these different things on my off days, and then work really hard on the days that I was on. And that was like the first thing that I was like, here's on my list. Here's the thing that I can start right now today. And like that's what a big thing about the book is. Here's this idea. Here's how you can start on this concept today. Jump right in, and that's something that you're able to do, because I think a lot of times we say, I'll get to that idea.
I'll get to that.
That's really good. Exactly.
Right.
And
when this happens, I will.
Yeah.
The if thens of life, where if I get this, or when this happens, then I will be happy, or then I will actually dedicate myself to losing weight, or whatever it is.
Sure.
Right.
And this is a whole bunch of different ideas, and like we talk about memory strategies and like lots of self-discovery type questions.
A lot of self-discovery, a lot of
it's you
actions.
think you do that right then, and you can say, well, okay, I need to maybe expand myself in my reading, and I talk about different books that I find that were really enriching or positive for me, and most of them are not your self-help books. They're books that were fiction that I thought were really, really great.
Some fiction, some learning, some
mix all those things together, and it's just, okay, do you read books? No.
Are you well-rounded?
Exactly.
Right? We've talked about this before, but the going on the date and I don't read. That kind of ends that topic right there, and you're like, okay.
Totally. One of my beginning sections is like stuff, and I kind of go through this experience where I'm on a date, we go and we sit down at the restaurant, we look at our menus, we order, all that kind of stuff can be done without really chatting to deep level. And ultimately you get to the thing where you're like, so what's your favorite book?
Right.
And you ask, what is your favorite whatever? And you have to be able to be prepared to say something. You don't have to honestly say, this is my all-time best, favorite, most amazing thing.
Will never change.
No, not at all. Because it's a talking point. It honestly doesn't matter. What matters is that you have thought about it enough to be able to have some type of response. Whether that's, I'm actually reading this right now. And it's really good because that's not even answering what is your favorite. But it's a completely acceptable answer.
Yeah.
And things like, okay, what's your favorite movie? And be like, oh man, I watched this movie the other week. First time seeing it, it was really cool. You didn't even have to give any depth to it. All those things are as a starting point for a conversation.
Right, and it doesn't have to be a date.
No.
This can be any social situation you're in where you're getting to know other people. It can be coworkers. It can be new roommates sometimes. Right?
Because ultimately, when you're trying to be able to make a connection, you have to connect. And in order to connect, you have to have common ground. And so you search for those types of things that we say, oh, we are same or we are different. And we are different, but we're the same in this way. And that's how you pull those types of things. So inevitably, in almost any get to know you experience, you're going to have what is your favorite fill in the blank.
Right.
And that's always going to be there. And so, like, that was one of the ones that I felt was really valuable inside of the book.
Yes.
Because it's inevitable. You're going to have that experience throughout your life. And I found so many people who don't know what to say. And so in the book, I list, I think, like 20 some odd things.
Right.
And it's all the different ideas, and none of them are
right.
like
No right answer.
Exactly.
No wrong answer.
Just
but
be able to have something and
do you
be able to
have
say
an opinion,
Mhm.
right? And that can be movie, books, dance, music.
yeah.
Right, and the more of these you span, the more of these types of things you experience and do, and you definitely get into this in the book, is when you have those. I have done this one time. I went rock climbing. Here's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you more interesting. It helps the conversation flow.
Yes, and that's so important. I feel like inside of the book we talk about this a bit as well, is just being able to have a little bit of knowledge on a lot of things. Just like, for me, I am not a plumber, I am not a person who builds houses, but I have done remodeling, I have worked on, plumbing type things, and if I were to talk to somebody and they go, my livelihood is this, I can say, wow, that's really amazing, I once did this, I learned so much. I know I don't know very much about it, but I have so much respect because of my experience.
Right.
Right. Now I just have this little drop.
Yeah.
And that alone bridges that gap where we'd say, oh, you're this thing, I'm this thing. And now it's, I kind of know a little bit about what you're doing.
Yep.
This is so cool. And then they can say, yeah, man, this and this and this. And then you go, oh, wow, that's crazy. And tell me more about this piece.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, you jump into a really deep conversation with them on the topic that they care about because you had this little drop of knowledge.
A little bit of experience, a little knowledge. I've run into that dozens of times at my job, working with engineers and whatever they're 3D printing and what projects they're working on. Oh yeah, we're making this medical tool for a knee surgery. Oh hey, I have this friend, this relative who's had this type of surgery. What does this tool do? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, I have a much deeper relationship with that customer. Mm-hmm. Who are they going to come back to when they need to buy more equipment? The person they have that personal connection with, and just that little bit of conversation and showing interest can bring that out.
And when you're showing that interest, like the individual who had that surgery, like, doesn't matter too much who it was. Like, that's not really something that they're going to remember. Like, oh, they had this one family member who did that thing. No, it doesn't. But you're like, here's a thing, a piece from my life. I'm offering this to you, and we're finding that your life and my life interconnect in this little piece here, and that connection is what they carry on with them in the future.
Exactly. It just builds those little relationships, and I don't talk to these people in a social way. Yeah. But every time I have a professional interaction with them, that professional interaction is a little bit more improved, a little bit better because they are relating to me. They know they can trust me because I take the time to get to know them, not just, all right, you broke it, now I fixed it, bye.
Yeah.
Right, type scenario.
It makes it from a transactional experience to a human experience.
Yes, very much so. So with your book, you also wrote a companion book. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So I was really, really excited about the challenge section because, I have a thing where I'm like, watch a great movie. That's a section. And then I have, a section about like trying something new, and like these are really broad topics because they are to be interpreted and applied to an individual's life in their life, right? Yeah. It's not a do this cookie cutter experience,
Right.
but these are starting points for you. And you go in there and you say, like, walk a new route. And in there I talk about, like, if you drive to work and you're capable to ride your bicycle, try that. Or go a different way and see that new experience. Maybe it'll be horrible. Maybe it'll be your new favorite thing.
Right.
Maybe you'll see the world in a different way, right?
Yeah.
So you have that experience and then you write about that experience. And I felt like this writing about part was so important. And so I wrote the Becoming Interesting Captain's Log. It's a simple writing book.
Like a formatted journal.
Exactly,
Yeah.
formatted journal. And this was really intended to be able to enable people to sit down and to write. So it has the challenges and the sections and then space to write. And I find that to be one of the best things that you can do, because going through the writing is really where the magic of the book really takes place.
Yes.
And you can totally just grab a spiral notebook.
Right.
That's fine.
You don't have to be fancy.
No. But if you want to have a dedicated place to write, you want to have something that fits with you and fits right next to that other book, this opens up, has all those sections in there, reiterations of the prompts. So if you're reading it along, you can also then bring that one with you as you go out on your adventures and write those things in there.
Which is a great idea, especially for how important and how integral that is for reliving those experiences very soon after, internalizing them more, and asking yourself the questions of, was this a good experience? No. I will never cycle through a canyon again. Right? Why? I broke my knee.
Oh my gosh.
Okay? Right?
Now, here's...
that's okay.
Yeah, and here's the key to being interesting is having some of those crazy experiences. Riding through a canyon and saying, I broke my knee. Like, horrible thing to happen to you.
Right.
What an interesting thing to talk about in the future. Like, for me, I love climbing mountains and exploring and doing all those things. And being able to do that is such a cool opportunity. As a teenager, a younger teenager, I climbed the tallest peak in Idaho, Mount Bora. And super amazing hike, so cool. I was with some people of different ages going up this mountainside. I scampered up the thing, all the energy of youth, right? And I'm sitting up on top of the mountain, and I'm seeing these dark clouds rolling in. And I'm just sitting there as a stupid youth, going, wow, those are really cool dark clouds.
That's so pretty.
And when other people get up to the top, they're like, yay, we've made it, let's, take a quick picture and let's head down the mountain because there's getting to be a storm.
The storm's coming.
And in there's this crazy cliffs. And on either side, and you kind of climb across this. And it was downpouring in there. We had lightning. Literally, lightning surging through my body. You could feel the static electricity building up. And, that's a cool story.
Right?
Right? What an amazing experience.
I'm thrilled to hear it right now.
And, we all made it off the mountainside. We went home okay. But, not very many people can say they felt the surges of static electricity from lightning from a storm.
No, that's not common.
That's a unique and interesting experience. Now, I think, honestly, one of the things I preface in the book and definitely give a disclaimer for is to be safe.
Oh yes.
Don't do anything stupid. Right. But if
your first activity should not be parachute skydiving by solo skydiving.
No. These should be safe, well thought out activities that you're having some forethought in and you're prepared for that experience.
Right.
In order to be able to do.
Midlife crisis.
No, none of that. None of that. But ultimately, if you end up having a great experience, you'll have something to share.
Yeah.
And if you end up having a negative experience,
you still have something
to share. It's an interesting thing. And with that, if you have a negative experience, definitely look for the bright side. Because for us, we can be oh man, we were raining and soaked in the mountain, and we had to climb down, and that's not the story I told. Right. That wasn't what I talked about at all.
Yeah. It happened.
Sure. But there is certain aspects of this that made it so enthralling and interesting. Those are the types of things in our lives that we also have to remember and look back
Yeah.
on, because that's what also helps us be interesting to ourselves.
Right.
Honestly, all of us have constant days over and over again where we do pretty much the same thing. We go to
Right.
work, we
Day
go
in,
here,
day out,
right? We
do
take
the
care of the
same
kids, do
things.
all these types of stuff. And that is a big part of life.
It is.
One of the things that I've realized is, like, if you're going to go on a trip, you have to travel. Travel is required in order to do that adventure, right?
Right.
You have to do the preparations before you can go do the traveling. And so
You
there's a
pack
lot
the
of this
underwear.
boring stuff
Yep.
that gets you to this little bit that's an amazing, wonderful experience. And
Yes.
that's generally how life is. There's a lot of this stuff. But if we like remember and focus on the monotony or the other things, we're going to feel in ourselves boring. But if we go and we try to be able to have those type of interesting experiences and we like hold on to those,
record it.
uh-huh,
Right.
internalize that as part of
Internalize
who
it.
we are,
Yep.
all of a sudden we're going to be manifesting that interesting dimension of our personality out for others to see and for us to be able to enjoy in ourselves as well.
Which is probably the more important part of it.
Totally.
So.
Totally. In my book, I have 2 different sections. The first section is becoming interesting for yourself, and then the second one, becoming interesting with others.
Yeah.
And if you look at just the amount of the book that's the first part for yourself, it's 2/3 of the book, easily. And the last third, I mean, we are social creatures, we interact, we find value out of interacting with these people.
Yep.
So, tremendously important. But do you know who I'm always with? I'm always with myself.
Right.
And I have to be able to connect deeply with me
Yes.
and be my own best friend, before I'm really able to have those good and meaningful experiences with others.
Right. Thank you. Couple ending questions here. We talked a lot about writing. I'm a big proponent of writing things by hand. I just like the tactile nature of it. Writing by hand also slows you down. It makes you think about what you're writing a little bit more. For your writing prompts, is there a better way, or do you personally have a preference?
Honestly, like, people can do anything that works well for them. If they feel like, grabbing a spiral notebook, buying my companion book, or sitting down, opening up a document on their computer and typing out those experiences, honestly, whatever works best for them. I personally like the tactile experience as well. I think that a lot of people who grew up in a generation where they had to write out things in school will find that their brain is wired in a way that they have a better experience with that. If they sat down and they learned to type, and that's how they expressed themselves as they were going through school, and that's how they had to process their mind, they probably have the myelin build up for that particular frame of thinking to do that. And if that's better, do it. Honestly, whatever works best for you to have that good experience, if that's pulling out a pen, pulling out a piece of paper, that's perfect. If it's just sitting down and typing, perfect.
Right. More power to you. As long as you get in and take the time to review and reflect on it, getting it written down, and then reflection later will also help to bring back those experiences and those learning points that you've had.
Like, if your penmanship is so bad that you're never going to look back at it, maybe typing it out is a little bit better. If going through and doing all those circles as you're writing, if that helps you stop and think about that a little bit deeper, more power to you.
Right. Yep, I agree. Who is an interesting person that you would love to meet, and why do you find them interesting?
Oh my goodness. Oh man. So my first thought was, I guess somebody that I had met for like 40 seconds. I would love to sit down and have like a lunch with Brandon Sanderson. I love writing. I love being able to express my thoughts and do those types of things. Also, like, as a writer, they're an independent business individual.
Yep.
They partner with companies to get their books published and get things out. And so I'd love to be able to like talk ideas, talk about business, talk about being able to grow personal brand and all those types of things. I mean, I don't know. That's my first thought that I think, and like there's so many other amazing individuals that I could think of. If I were to be able to go back in time, I would want to sit down with Gandhi. He is one of my all-time biggest heroes in history. I think he's tremendously amazing. His just fortitude of his own personal belief and how he saw the world, and being completely unbending on that, was that alone awe-inspiring. And then going after that to how he changed the face of the world.
Literally the world.
That is so worth note.
In non-violent ways.
Yeah.
That was one of his cornerstones. Was we can do this.
Yeah. And
we don't have to get all up in arms about it.
Someone would say to him, passive resistance, it doesn't work. And he says, well, it's good because I've never advocated for passive anything. He was very, very active, but his activeness didn't involve sticks and rocks.
Right.
He saw another way. And even if that way hurt him, hurt people he cared about, he had this firm belief and he stuck with it. And I think that is absolutely inspiring.
It is. I agree. That would be quite an interview for my show as well.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And right? I think
because that he embodies a lot of those things. Change and progress. Personally, he made those himself.
Oh yeah.
He had to go through that and then to inspire others.
Yeah, with his person that he was in South Africa.
Yes.
When he had his first, I guess it were, revolution.
Yep.
He was a very, very different person. I mean, definitely the cornerstones, the foundations were all there.
Yeah.
But from there to where he ends, when he is in India and he's going through that transformation, he had to spend some time where he had to stop and examine his life, examine who he was, what he cared about, what were his values and his virtues, and then stand by those. And there was change, there was growth, and he was able to apply, I think, a lot of those key principles that I would definitely write about that he just did naturally. And by doing those things, he was able to reach the tremendous potential that he had in his life.
Excellent. Final question for you. What 2 books would you recommend going along with your own?
I have been just right now rereading How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yes, classic.
Yeah, Carnegie it's a foundational piece of literature.
Yes.
And I think that one, like, a lot of what he talks about in there is valuing other people, understanding where they're coming from, and like a lot of those type of things where you're seeing their point of view and then you're seeing your point of view and how they connect. And I think that that's an awesome tie-in to this. Another one is actually one that you had just had recently talked about in your book, Mel Robbins' 5-Second Rule. Because I think not only do we need to be thinking about doing things, but we have to just get up and do it. And having some type of starting ritual, activation protocol, whatever you call it with, that is so key. And for me, like, the thing that I'm offering there as a starting ritual is you finish that section, you read the prompt, and then you do it, right? And so I have that built in in every single section. And so that is that potential starting ritual. But seeing how other people do those starting rituals and how that starting ritual leads to doing and changing your life would be wonderful.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, Jeremy, for joining us today. I really recommend this book. You can get it on Amazon and Kindle. I highly recommend you all go and check it out and find new ways to help yourself become more interesting. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.